I met this 6-year-old child with this emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by actor Douglas Tait. Douglas, how you doing today?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing so good. For those of you that don't know Douglas, he has been in some of the most iconic things that mean a lot to me. The newer seasons, the TV show of Star Trek Picard, he's a part of that. Now, that's amazing, but I got to talk about some of the horror things that you've done, man. From Hellboy to Annabelle Comes Home, The Final Wish, Unfriended Dark Web, and something I need to talk about real quick. You are Jason Voorhees in Freddy vs. Jason when he's holding that head coming up out of the water. One of the most iconic scenes to me in that whole movie. I got to talk about that first. What was that like for you to play, honestly,
Dude,
the most iconic part of that whole movie?
man, I gotta tell you, I got a whole story on that. It was surreal, to tell you the truth. I mean, I wasn't the biggest Friday the 13th fan, but I was a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan. So here I am with Robert Englund, like, you know, in the Jason outfit, mask and everything, and it was unbelievable. Like, I felt like childhood dreams coming true. It was unbelievable. But I auditioned for the whole movie, and I had gotten several callbacks as Jason, and then I found out I didn't get it, and I was like, oh, that sucks. And then, like, literally like 6 months later, they called me and said, hey, we're doing a reshoot in LA, and we're considering you for Jason. I was like, oh, okay, shoot. I didn't understand what went on or whatever. So I ended up getting it. I come to find out years later, doing conventions with Ken Kersinger, who played Jason, that he came in for the stunt coordinating job. He was going to be hired for the stunt coordinator, and Ronnie Yu looked at him and was like, oh my God, he's 6'5", you know, I'm 6'5". He's like, what do you think about playing Jason? They're shot in Canada. I'm from Los Angeles. So they hired him. Fast forward 6 months later, they wanted to do a reshoot because Jason Ritter ends the movie growing claws, and they didn't like the ending.
Okay.
So they were changing the ending. They couldn't get Ken's visa in time to shoot the film, to the reshoot. So I was the second choice, and I did the scene. So all this stuff I found out years later, which was kind of cool.
And like I said, that works out, man, because that is, to me, again, people could talk shit on that movie all they want. To me, it's not my favorite Nightmare or Friday movie, obviously, but it's Freddy and Jason in the same movie, man. And to see Jason come out of that lake holding Freddy's head, to me, is just, like I said, it's iconic. I was waiting for this movie when Jason Goes to Hell, when the glove comes up and grabs Jason's mask. When that happened, me and my cousins like freaked out, like, oh, it was Freddy in a Jason movie. And like waiting, and this finally happening, the build up to me was so huge. The movie could have never lived up to the expectations I had.
Oh, but I agree with you. I think that, like, it got a little flack at first, but what I've noticed is over the years, everybody likes the movie. It may not be their favorite, but like, people love it now. Like, at first it was kind of like hit or miss, but I think as years have gone on, it's become like a classic film, you know?
And like I said, it's Freddy versus Jason. The whole movie could have been them playing pinball together, and I still would have watched the whole thing.
I've never seen this before. It's never happened before at that time, and it hasn't happened since. So it's pretty epic.
Well, and me growing up, you know, I was born in '86. So growing up for me, you know, the holy trinity of horror to me was Freddy, Michael, Jason, Chucky, Pinhead. You know, like, that was my universal monsters.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So to see them in the same film to me was just so epic and so amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a little older than you. Mine is almost the same, except for Pinhead and Chucky. It's Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Leatherface, and Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. You got to put Leatherface on there, man.
Yeah, you got to throw
him
on there. He's at the lower end. It's definitely, for me, Michael Myers, #1, Freddy Krueger, and Jason. So
yeah. And it's funny because, if Leatherface, if the other movies would have been as good as 1 and 2, I think he would have been right up there in that discussion.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
after 1 and 2, the movies got so bad to me that it's just
they drop quality. I don't know. There was something iconic about the first two. I agree with you, man. I mean, they're iconic. I mean, it really is. Yeah.
And the first one, honestly, if you watch the first one now, I think it's more of an art film, honestly, than it is a slasher. Like the way they do those shots and everything they do there, it's so artsy and amazing.
No, I agree, man. I agree. I'm getting a call. Sorry.
No, it's all good, man. So is there anything that you're working on in the future that you are able to tell us about, or is everything kind of under wraps right now?
Actually, I'm on this show, Legacies, which is a CW show. I'm currently in Atlanta shooting that. And it's kind of like, it was a spinoff of Vampire Diaries and Originals, if there's any of those fans out there. Really great group of people, good show to work on. So I'm doing that right now. And then I go from here and I'm playing a character, a lead in a movie that was like a short with Blumhouse called Girl in the Woods. The Girl in the Woods. It was The Door in the Woods and Girl in the Woods now. And this is the feature version of it. So yeah, I don't know if anybody's seen that, but yeah, I'm going to be doing that soon.
The Door in the Woods, I believe, is on Shudder right now. Shudder or Prime, one of the two right now, I want to say.
I don't know if there's a connect. I thought there was like originally a connection to that. There might be, but it's definitely, I think The Girl in the Woods comes from that storyline of The Door in the Woods. There's other versions of it though that were not as good. I know this was the quality one of those. There's movies have similar titles and stuff. So when I was looking it up, I was like, oh, is it this one? Oh no, it's not the same producers. Oh, but this one is. So yeah. So I'm gonna be
now.
That. Yeah.
Now, not only are you part of the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th world forever, but now you're gonna be part of the Blumhouse world forever, which is also something that any horror fan would kill to be a part of, man. Congratulations. And thank you so much for taking the time out to do this with me, man.
No, Unfriended Dark Web is Blumhouse too.
Right.
And I have another one that's Blumhouse that's coming out that I do something in too that I can't talk about. So yeah, I'm in that world, which is cool because they're killing it, man. I mean, they're top, notch to me for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I love everything Blumhouse does. It's just like everything else. Sure, there's some misses, but they are definitely way more hit than miss when it comes to Blumhouse to me.
Man. I feel like they just get the whole horror genre and they understand linking. It's weird because there's been movies I've been a part of years ago that they would do a remake or something and they wouldn't bring in like people from the original. Like they didn't even think about that. And I was like, dude, I'm a fan. Like fans want to see their original actors and they just didn't care. Blumhouse understands that. They're like, no, we're going to get this person and this person that was in the original. It just seems like common sense. But producers that, certain producers, they just don't think about those things. Jason does and his team over there. So.
And that's one of the things, like, obviously the first one worked for a reason. So if you're going to model yourself around the first one, use some of those things that worked to your advantage.
Exactly. I understand like, people age and there's a different age gap and they may not be able to play the same character they played in the original 30 years, but you could definitely throw them in a different role and the fans will appreciate that,
Oh, total Easter eggs, man. Everybody loves finding those.
Exactly, man.
So we know what you got going on in the future and we know what you're doing right now. But now, my friend, I want to take it back to the past, Douglas. I want to go back to how horror started for you and talk about the first horror movie you watched. And your first horror movie was?
Halloween, the original one. Yes, there it is.
As if you guys couldn't tell by everything here.
Oh my gosh, dude. Chills, bro. Chills just like thinking about it. You know what it is? There's something about when you see something as a kid that you'll never get that same feeling back as you watch a new movie as an adult. It just hits you on a different level. You know what I mean? And when it comes to horror, you're scared more as a kid, obviously, So those emotions and everything are very heightened. And and like I'm getting the chills talking about it just because I remember those feelings of seeing Halloween as a kid and being frightened of it, but loving it and loving the Michael Myers mask and all these things. And back then you couldn't find the mask and like you can go now online, you can buy like a ton of Myers masks, you can buy anything you want, you can buy the blade and this and that. I literally had my grandpa making these things, my mom finding me the outfits. My grandpa made me a pair of Freddy claws, dude.
Yes.
For Halloween. It was out of a gardener's glove, and he fashioned, he made like aluminum blades and stuff. And it's like that's the stuff you had to do back then,
He's like, I swear I've never done this before.
Yeah. So yeah, so seeing Halloween as a kid, and I mentioned to you on the chat when we were talking about it, I was like, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, was terrorizing people at that time, and I'm from LA, so it was kind of like a tie-in of Michael Myers and Richard Ramirez, and it was like heightened, and it was like, oh my God, dude, it's freaky,
right?
And the music and everything just all came together, and was like, wow.
And that's one thing about Halloween, something I've always talked about. We were just talking about it a minute ago with what the holy trinity of horror was to us, and with Michael, Jason, Freddy. And they all stood out to me for different reasons. Jason always stood out because of the uniqueness of his kills. He wasn't just, I'm going to stab you or whatever. He was very unique. Freddy always stuck out to me because you can't escape him. You have to sleep no matter what you do.
Yes.
And then Michael, obviously, he was a dude. He was just a guy. Like when Laurie stabs him and the mask comes off, and then he steps into the light, and he's just a man. That's what he is. He's not a monster. He's not a burn victim. He's just a regular guy. And to me, that made him stand out as even scarier because he's just a guy, just like you and I.
That's exactly what it is. That's what scared me the most, because I saw him as that could be your neighbor. That could be somebody you know. That could be anybody. He's not this superhuman, thing that can't die. I mean, he couldn't die, but there's a humanization of him, and there's that scene, as I discussed with you, where Dr. Loomis, is talking about him. I saw this 6-year-old child with this pale, emotionless face and the darkest eyes, the devil's eyes, and just the fear in his face, and he's talking about him. He made me fear him. It wasn't just Michael being scary in a mask. It was the fact that this guy had been following him and saw who he was, and like that fact that he's human, and he's like, that could be somebody. That, I agree, it's scarier.
Yeah. And we talk about how iconic the score is for Halloween. I mean, you look at Halloween, you look at Jaws, you look at Star Wars, you look at Psycho. These are movies that people, if they haven't even seen the movies, they know the main score.
Yeah.
But with Halloween, like you were just talking that scene with the devil's eyes and the light piano that's getting played behind us. He's telling this story. It's hair raising, man.
Oh,
like
it's
really,
bro, I'm telling you, it's
and he absolutely crushed it, man. Like in the way that he, this is before Loomis has gone over the top crazy. Like I love number 2, obviously. 6 times.
You don't know what death is. So damn good. Man. Oh my God, I love it. Oh, he just made that movie. So
he did, especially 2 more than 1. See, 1 to me, I think is amazing. 2, I don't hold 2 in as high as regard as what everybody else does, because I feel like Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of just like almost wasted in that role in that film, because she's just in a hospital bed for most of the time. But the kills make up for it. There are a lot of great kills in Halloween too.
In 2, and it's more gory in 2. And he gets burnt and everything. And I do like 2. I mean, and 2 isn't really a sequel. It's a continuation.
Yeah.
Man, there was an article I read about how they showed the movie without the soundtrack in yet, and people were just like, I don't know. And then once John Carpenter did that score, that's when it just like, became what it was. So,
and it's funny because as iconic as Michael Myers is, everybody knows the William Shatner mask. Obviously, they know who Mike Myers is.
Yeah,
but that score, I think, is even more. Everybody knows that first Halloween, that first piano, like the, like I said, the 3 I really think about the most when it comes to the horror world are Jaws, Halloween, and Psycho.
Yeah.
Those 3 movies, those scores, even if you have not seen those films.
Oh yeah, man. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it just shows how important the score can be to a film, like you were talking about. Because I've heard that too. I heard that Halloween didn't even get picked up because until they got the score in it. Then people were calling to buy it right after they had showed the screenings with the score involved because
Isn't that crazy to think?
it adds so much to that film.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, no, it's and I think Carpenter's a genius, and like he did the score for the last Halloween, and he like you wouldn't think he could even do any better than he did, but he did stuff in that I was like, I have the soundtrack. I thought it was amazing. I was like,
and if
wow.
you watch the behind the scenes on the Blu-ray, like it's showing how they're creating the soundtrack. And in one scene, he's got an electric guitar and he has a violin bow and he's just running this violin bow over a distorted guitar.
I didn't see that. That's so cool. That's where he got that weird noises that he has.
Yes. When the kid's going over the fence, he's got that, like that's literally just a violin bow going over a distorted guitar.
He's
and
got
that's
like
the genius of John Carpenter.
These weird horn noises in it, like distorted horns and stuff. It's so cool, man.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we talk about Halloween, and obviously this is a movie that means a lot to almost every person I've ever met in the horror world. When you think of Halloween, what's the first thing that pops in your head?
Like the film you're saying, right?
Yeah.
That we're talking about. I mean, Michael Myers pops in my head first. The shape, the boogeyman, for sure.
You can't kill the boogeyman.
No, man. And then you got Jamie Lee Curtis and Loomis, of course, but it's definitely Myers. And that's why when they did 3, people were like, what the hell, man? No Myers? And I didn't like 3 when I first saw it as much, but now I appreciate it more just because I wanted Myers to be in it. I wanted the shape in there. But
I'm a huge fan of 3.
I know. I love it now. I love it now. And I love the masks in it. And I love all that stuff. I think it's awesome. And I think it's different and cool. But I think back in the time, I was such a Myers fan. I wanted to continue that.
Right.
And I know Carpenter didn't want to do that.
Right. Yeah. Because initially Halloween was supposed to be an anthology and every year was going to be a different story, but people loved Michael Myers and that really hurt Season of the Witch.
Yeah, it did. It totally did.
So when we're back on the original Halloween, again, we've talked about how iconic this movie is, but if you had to pick one scene to be your favorite scene, which scene would that be?
Man, I mean, I love I have a few, but I love the shots of the steady cam coming through the house when Myers is walking in. I mean, that I don't think I'd ever seen that before. And I didn't know what they were doing at the time. Now I see what they were doing. I just thought that was so awesome and creepy, and you're seeing it through his eyes and stuff. But I'm telling you, that scene with Loomis talking about Michael Myers is the one that really affected me, because I was like, this guy is terrified. He's been with this kid and realized this kid needs to be locked up, at the time. And now he's an adult and he's like, this guy's going to do damage, man. He needs to be caged, and that's what really put the fear in me as a kid seeing that. I just remember that scene. It was so iconic.
It is. It's amazing. It's one of the things that, for those of you, if you haven't seen the movie, that was the intro. When you've seen the SledgeHammer horror intro just now, the volume that was over top of that is what we're talking about. That's how much this means to us. So that's what you have here. Now I'm going to go dark on you here, Doug, because we talked about, I know it's hard to go dark when you're talking about Halloween, but we can't talk about slashers without talking about kills. And as horror fans, we love kills. Yeah. Now, I don't like to say favorite just because that's too dark, but what kill would you say stuck with you the most from Halloween?
I think when he killed his the babysitter, killed not the babysitter, Judith, when he killed Judith. I mean, that to me sticks out the most, because he's going through the house, you're seeing it, he's doing that, you got the ghost boyfriend and the ghost outfit and stuff, and then he dresses up in that. That scene is, and the kills in that were very simple, they weren't gory. It was more in your imagination. You weren't seeing, like, 2 ramps it up, definitely. But those kills were to me, I think, the best. I'm trying to think. I know that I really love when he's attacking his sister in the closet, but she doesn't die.
Oh, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie
When he's
Lee
got her
Curtis.
in the closet.
Got her in that was like scary, you know, that was
Yeah.
so scary. And then he gets shot off the balcony, but that's not a kill. But
Right.
it could have been. It could have been.
But if for those of you that don't know, he got shot 6 times.
6 times, yes.
You know?
But just that, just him there in the closet and all that, and her screaming, and that scream she had was just blood curdling, man.
She's a scream queen, man. That's what gave her the title.
Oh, dude. She wouldn't like to hear that name, but the scream queen is like in the movie business is taking on like a negative connotation for an actress. But she was a hell of a screamer, I'll say that.
Well, that one and the one with the boyfriend when he pins him up against the wall, and he just looks at him, and then he does the first ever iconic head tilt.
That's the one. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, for sure. That right there, and you know, he just did it in the moment, and that became the look. You know,
yeah,
it was so good. It was like, I'm curious of this, what I just did. Like, I'm not processing it like a normal person. You know, something off there.
So, and it's this movie has inspired so many movies that we know. It's almost ridiculous what this movie has inspired. So while we're talking about all the different movies this is inspired, I'm going to go scream on you here for a second, Doug. What's your favorite scary movie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
God, man, I have to say Halloween is up there as my favorite. Just because I saw it as a kid, it touched me in a way. I was a huge Halloween holiday fan. It was my time of the year. I always did haunted houses at my house and dressed it up. So having a movie take place on Halloween and then the whole mask and everything, that to me just became iconic. One of the scariest horror movies for me also, like even beyond Halloween, where I was literally terrified, was The Exorcist. I felt like that was one of the, seeing that as a kid just tripped me out, you know, just because of Satan and everything. It's just freaky as hell.
And that's the only movie. I tell this story all the time, and I'm sorry for repeat viewers, but I grew up in a video store.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, we would watch horror movies on the weekends and stuff. And The Exorcist will always hold a stigma to me because that's the only movie that my mother ever shut off. She shut it off. She was like, nope, this is too much. We're not doing this. And so I'm with you. The Exorcist, I think The Exorcist is the scariest movie ever made.
I really
hands down, bar none.
I don't know what it is about that movie. I mean, it's just, it has something that goes, it hits you deeper, you know? It's like, it's almost those movies where you like don't want to go to sleep because you think about, oh my God, this thing could happen in real life. Someone could be possessed. And I grew up in Catholic school too. So maybe there's a little of that in there, you know? I don't know, man. But yeah, man. And Dick Smith, the famous Dick Smith, like came up with the makeup in that and, you know, the animatron. I mean, it's just like just watching it to this day, like just seeing like gifts of it even, you know? You know, it's freaky, man. It's so well done.
It is. And it's one of those things that you get different. I've talked about this too. There's a different experience I had watching The Exorcist as a child as compared to watching it as the father of 2 daughters. You know, as a kid, you're like, fuck that girl, get out of there, she's done. You know, as a father, I'm like, you know, what if that was my little girl? So it scares me on a whole nother level.
That's
being
funny.
a father.
No, that's funny you say that because I have kids too, and like they haven't watched that yet. But yeah, like my reaction would definitely be different now than as a kid for sure.
Yeah, man. So you are busy tonight. We have some other plans. Obviously, this is pre-recorded, you guys, but today is Oscar Sunday. But before I let you go, Doug, we always end Sledgehammer Horror, my first horror movie, with the same question, my friend. We go back to a skull count. What we're doing now is we're going back to the original Halloween, and we're ranking this 0 to 5 skulls, 0 being the worst and 5 being the best. We're not being critics right now. We're not judging on acting. We're not judging on box office success. We're judging this strictly on what this movie means to you and how it affected you as a child. So 0 to 5 skulls. You can use half and quarter. What would your ranking be, Doug?
I'm gonna give it a 9. I'm giving it a 9, man, for sure. I would say 10, but there's a couple of things I think that it's missing. They could have made it that way, but because of how it affected me, a 9.
See, I think there's no such thing as a perfect film, horror film. I think that the closest I've ever seen to the perfect horror film, just my simple opinion, is the very first Nightmare on Elm Street. I think that everything about that is perfect until the last 5 minutes. I hate the dumb fucking Freddy car. I hate the blow up doll going through the window. You take away that last, if that movie ended with fire on the bed, perfect horror film to me. But like always, you can always improve. There's always room for improvement with everything. So,
of course. You know,
now everybody, Doug has some pretty cool things that are coming up here soon that he can't talk about yet. But don't wait for me to tell you. All his social media links are down here in the description. So make sure you're throwing him a follow, because I promise you some of the news he has coming up, you are not going to want to miss. I'm so excited. When he could talk about it, I can't wait to hear about it. So, Doug, don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.